What's up, everybody? This is the 2023 Chevy Silverado ZR2, and so about the most off-road focused version of the Silverado. Well, it certainly looks the part. This thing is very mean and aggressive looking and really stands out, especially here in this red hot color this one comes in. But I mean, up front there, you'll see there's a three-piece steel bumper, which gives you a better approach angle compared to a regular version of the Silverado. You have this more aggressive hood here with a very prominent 6.2 liter V8 badges there on the top of it, and proudly announces that this thing actually has a V8, unlike the Raptor and some of the other competitors. It just looks really, really cool. I also love the black accents here. I also love how that blends in with a little bit of red accents you see there on the tow hooks and on the flow tie that they have there to open up that grille and give you better cooling up front. You also see some skid plates hiding there right behind that front bumper as well for when the 31.8 degree approach angle isn't enough clearance. This also has 11.2 inches of ground clearance overall, and so that certainly helps you to clear most obstacles. And then coming down to the sides here, you see you have these 33-inch mud tires here on these 18-inch wheels that look great and also will help to give you all that extra traction you need off-road. It also has a 23.4 degree breakover angle, which is better than everything except the Raptor on 37-inch tires. So to have that good of a breakover angle here with just the 33s is really impressive. This one also has the rock rails you see here, and there's also a massive ZR2 badge here on the front fender that's as big as my forearm. It's pretty hilarious. There's no way you're gonna miss that this is a ZR2 with all these badges. You also have some up front there in that unique grille. But also coming around to the back there, you'll see that you have a pretty standard rear bumper there. They made sure that they tucked the exhaust tips, so instead of featuring the exhaust tips like you see on a Raptor or something like that, this actually hides them, and that was an attempt to help with the departure angle, which is a little worse than some of the competitors and is a 23.3 degree departure angle there. So still very impressive though, and you also see it's tied up to this 5'8" bed, and you have all the usual versatility here with these Silverado beds. I love how you have the built-in step in the rear bumper there. This one also does have the multi-flex tailgate there, so you can have in multiple different configurations there as far as how you open that up. That is optional, you don't have to have that, but a nice touch for sure. And all kinds of various tie downs, hookups in that bed. You also have a camera looking down into the bed as well. And so as far as all that stuff goes, it's going to still be a very usable truck, of course, while still giving you great off-road capability. And the fact this is also about 5 inches narrower than a Raptor means you're going to be able to go on more trails than the Raptor as well. The interior of the Silverado is a really nice place to be now, thanks to the redo that they did last year. That continues on here for the 2023 model year as well. And so it means you have this huge 13.4-inch touchscreen, digital gauges, and this interior finally feels modern and not dated like it did, back in the pre-2022 models. And so that all transfers over here for the ZR2 here. And it's a really nice interior now. Now, I will say that there are some things I'm still not in love with. For example, this steering wheel still has these plastic protrusions here right by your 9 3 grip, so it's not a super comfortable grip. These seats were also a little bit firmer than I would like. They do have some nice bolstering here though, and are a little bit sportier than your average Silverado seats, but just not a huge fan of the little bit of a firm seat. This has, some people prefer a firm seat. That'll come down to personal preference. One thing also that might be subjective, but I'm not sure if it works, is that you have this like light gray leather, which is an option. You can't just get regular black, but combined with the yellow stitching here, it looks okay if the outside wasn't red and black. Just red and black, and then you have the yellow and gray on the inside here. It just seems like an odd mismatch. I'm surprised they offer this combo. Yeah, that's again another subjective thing. But anyway, the real impressive things here, you have this 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, and I love the way they set this up. Not only is it just very nice with the graphics and everything, I kind of like how it's a little bit of a retro throwback with the blockier, styling there around the edges and stuff. But what I love is the configurability. GM is so good with how much they let you configure digital gauges, and this is no different. So of course you can customize the stuff in the middle and also the stuff there in those gauge pods on the right and on the left. And what I love is you can also customize the bottom there. So if you want to just have it nice and simple, you can, but if you want to have all your temperatures laid out there, you can have that. I love that they do that customization. That's something that a lot of others don't do. Just a really well done gauge cluster. This one also does have the technology package, which gives you the camera rear view mirror and also the 12.3-inch head-up display. It's a massive head-up display here, and it's nice to have if you're into head-up displays. I'm personally not a huge fan of them. I don't think it's a necessity. It's a $2,000 package for that. The camera rearview mirror and also adaptive cruise control is bundled into that as well. You know, nice to have the head-up display though nonetheless. And that rear camera mirror is also a nice touch, especially if you're going to have, you know, taller people sitting in the back seat there a lot. But obviously being a truck, you don't really need it. You have a great view out of that back window. Coming down to this 13.4-inch touchscreen, it is really well done. So it's running the Google Android-based infotainment system, and so that means that it wants you to always sign into your Google account. Once you sign in once, you're set, but I didn't sign in, and it keeps asking me over and over again if I want to sign in. But it's, you know, really well done. It's pretty quick. It hasn't been insanely fast. There have been a couple of times where I'm waiting a beat for something to load, but overall it's pretty well done here so far, and it's great to just have Google Maps. And if you do have it signed into your account, then, you know, stuff you look up on your phone automatically copies over to the car here, and it's, you know, really convenient from that standpoint. So you're not sitting here in the car punching in addresses and things like that if you don't want. And I also love how you have this little row of toggles here on the left-hand side that are customizable. So like, for example, you know, I have the cameras right up there at the top because I'm not great at parking trucks because I don't drive trucks very often. So having all those cameras is really great. And having it in just one touch away is also really nice. But if you want to have something else up there, use other shortcuts for trailering or whatever other, you know, modes you want to have on there. But those cameras are great. You have, you know, forward cameras, rear cameras, you know, cameras at the corners there, all kinds of views, which really helps you both on-road and off-road. And so great you have all of those. It does, of course, have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto as well. I do wish it would take up the entire screen, at least as an option, but there is no way to expand it. You're always just forced to have this extra little split screen thing, which isn't very useful in my opinion, because I mean, it can show you just the song and, you know, otherwise like, you're just showing you a clock or your maps. It's fine. I just, you know, it'd be nice to have the full screen for CarPlay like some others do offer. Otherwise though, you know, just a few other basic things, you know, but it's not overly complicated. It doesn't have a million submenus or anything. It's nice and simple the way it's, you know, laid out there. I also love you have a nice big volume knob still, and you also have a little home button right next to it. So if you're ever in some kind of menu or you just want to get out of whatever, you take that, it takes you right back to the home page. Love that. Also love the row of toggles there, nice and simple. And I love the analog, you know, controls here for climate. Lots of buttons and, you know, not overly, you know, overwhelming or anything. Love that as well. And then otherwise, you know, typical Silverado stuff that, you know, is pretty much the same as what you had with the, you know, pre-refresh version here. So you have lots of storage spaces, huge pockets on the doors, several different pockets here in the middle. You even have one here on the passenger side dash. You also have, of course, the center armrest, which opens up, and you have a bunch of extra storage in there and a couple extra power outlets. You also do have a USB and USB-C jack out front here by your climate controls. And so, you know, really well done. The other thing I will mention is this one has this Bose stereo, and the Bose stereo sounded pretty good. I've already been driving this vehicle for a few days, and it's a pretty solid stereo. It's not quite as impressive as the top stereos you get in some of the competing trucks, but you know, it's still a pretty solid sound experience, and, you know, shouldn't upset anyone too much. One thing, though, that is a little bit annoying about this screen that I forgot to mention is that at night, it really is bright, and I was looking for ways to dim it, and I couldn't find any way to dim it, and it's just, for some reason, CarPlay is, like, blaring in your face. I didn't love that, but that's my only other little nitpick here of this interior. Otherwise, it's really well done. Back seat is super spacious. That's the same as any, you know, pre-refresh Silverado as well, so nothing new there. This one does have heated rear seats though in the ZR2s, which is great that you get that included in this ZR2 package. But all the same usual tricks as far as, you know, flipping up the seat bottom, having all the little storage spaces, all that kind of stuff. And so overall, a really nice back seat. But I will say though that you only have a small moonroof available. A lot of the competitors do offer a huge glass roof. You don't have anything like that here on this. So a little bit old school as far as that goes. But otherwise, yeah, just a really nice interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Silverado ZR2 has, you know, just a basic Chevy key, but it's nice these days. Still plasticky, but has a little bit of a texture here on it. And overall, not too big or anything either, and just a pretty nice key. But it is, of course, keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off here in the ZR2. So the first things you'll notice about it, well, again, you're sitting up very high, so you have a very commanding view of the road. pretty good visibility as well. If you're on the shorter side, then you may have these bulges in the hood here that kind of block your view a tiny bit. Not a big deal though, you know, you still see very good. Same thing, you know, with these A-pillars, they're pretty thick, but you're up so high, it's not too bad, but a little bit more of a thicker A-pillar. And yeah, but still, you know, pretty easy to drive again with all the camera assistance and all that as well. But other things here about the ZR2. So the ride is not bad here at lower speeds. So it's pretty smooth. I would say that it probably is a little bit smoother than a regular Silverado thanks to these Multimatic spool valve dampers that you have, but you still do have a leaf spring set up there as far as the suspension in the back, and so you know that limits the ride quality a little bit still. And so when you look at a Raptor, for example, which is the main competitor, so that's what I'll be talking about the most in this video, the Raptor has a way smoother ride. I mean, hands down, the Raptor, it like floats over the stuff that you feel in this, that you don't even recognize that it has bumps in the road like this. It's you know, so I mean, I would say the trade-off here though is that the Silverado is a little bit more stable, so that the Raptor's really set up to, you know, feel like it's some like, you know, dune jumper. This thing, you know, doesn't have as much dive or as much lean as the Raptor, so it's just going to come down to, you know, do you want that, you know, more stable, flatter and firmer ride, or do you want the floatier nature of, you know, the Raptor, which has those, you know, coil springs in the back of that and just a much softer setup. So it really comes down to, you know, personal preference, I guess, as far as that goes. But it just means, you know, when you're daily driving these things and you're not, you know, going crazy, I just think the Raptor is certainly a more comfortable daily driver than this is. I've already been driving this vehicle for a few days now, and it still is very nice. Just, you know, one thing that I noticed pretty early on here. Other things, all the driver controls are very good. So brakes bite right towards the top of the pedal there, feel nice and reassuring. You know, you don't have any kind of brake changes here though, I don't think, because it's, you know, the same engine you get in any other Silverado, so nothing special there, so no real need for any kind of upgraded brakes. Throttle response though is nice and responsive here. You know, it's paired up to this 10-speed automatic transmission. Again, very familiar territory if you're used to anything from Chevy in the past few years. Nothing new there either, but it's just, you know, a very old school kind of feeling as far as the engine response. That's something, you know, with the Raptor, you have the turbos, and it's also pretty responsive, but, you know, this is just a little more direct here, being a naturally aspirated big engine. It's just something that, you know, certainly feels good, especially in an off-road truck like this. But I'm going to turn down onto this back road here and see how it accelerates. We don't have any kind of sport modes or anything here in the ZR2, so you just have it in drive here and floor it. Here we go. Yeah, very responsive. And that's that V8 growl that you want out of an off-road truck that the Raptor is sorely missing. And it really, it pulls nice and strong. I mean, it's not gonna, you know, blow your mind or anything. This is no TRX or Raptor R with their supercharged V8s. It's still mind-boggling to me that Chevy has not decided to compete with that. But anyway, this, you know, still runs this good old 6.2 liter V8 engine, does 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, and does have a 5.7 seconds 0 to 60, which is basically the same as a regular Raptor. So even though you're down a good bit of power and torque in straight line acceleration, at least up to 60, you know, these are going to feel pretty similar from a seat of your pants kind of, you know, feeling there. And, you know, it's plenty of power for this type of thing. You know, again, if you want the crazy bonkers stuff, unfortunately, Chevy doesn't have an answer for you. You're going to have to go to the Raptor R or the TRX, but with those, you're spending, you know, tens of thousands of dollars more money. So if money's no object, you know, I'd say those are a lot more fun to, you know, fly around in. But, you know, for most people, I think that this amount of power is going to be plenty, and it does feel very good. And I still just love the fact it comes with a V8. You can also get a Borla exhaust on these from the factory as an option. This one does not have that though, so that's why it doesn't have quite as loud of a growl as you may still be looking for. But I have to say, the refinement is pretty good for an off-road truck like this. You know, I mean, even with these mud tires, and this road actually does generate some road noise typically. It's, you know, just a dull hum, but you're really, you know, it's not this roaring, you know, tire sound. You know, we'll demonstrate what it feels like out on the highway, but, you know, at some reasonable suburban, you know, road speeds, it's really, you know, totally fine. And, you know, just, I'm pretty impressed with, you know, how, you know, refined and civilized it is. But anyway, coming up some corners here, I'm not going to review this like a sports car, but let's just see how it goes around corners. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, there is a little bit of lean here. And of course, it's a big, heavy truck. It's over 5,700 pounds, and you're way high off the ground, you know, with the 2-inch lift this thing has and all the ground clearance and all that. But you know, it does do a really good job. And again, I just keep coming back to being impressed by the fact that there isn't a ton of nosedive, there isn't a ton of lean or squat like you get from the Raptor. So it's definitely a more controlled and a more confidence-inspiring ride, I would say, as well, as far as the handling goes. And so, yeah, I think that's really the bottom line here as far as Silverado. It's just more confident. You know, I think the Raptor still can handle, you know, being thrown around corners and stuff. It's just that, you know, scares you a little bit more with all the leaning that thing does. But this is, yeah, definitely flatter and just feels really, really, really nice. And obviously the mud tires are going to mean you're not going to have a ton of grip here on, you know, normal pavement, but as long as you know your limits, this thing is a really nice handling truck still. Now, obviously the main appeal of the ZR2 here is its extra off-road capability. I'm no off-roader really. I've off-roaded a few times, but I'm by no means an expert, so I will leave the analysis of the off-road capabilities to other channels that are more suited to that. But what I can say is that, you know, some of the overview stuff here is you have not only a locking rear diff, but you also have a locking front diff as well here in the ZR2, which is really, you know, the thing that puts it over, you know, some of the more pedestrian stuff like a Tundra TRD Pro, for example, or even like an F-150 Tremor. So, you know, that is really the one key thing in addition to the Multimatic, you know, 3-valve dampers there. You know, those are the real two big things that set this apart from even like a Trail Boss, for example. But in addition to that, you also have upgraded front half shafts to, you know, handle the extra power that's going through that front, you know, e-locker there. And so it's great that you have that. Also, you have a couple different driving modes here. There's an off-road mode and a terrain mode. The terrain mode is basically like one pedal driving off-road. So it's for low speeds, and you just take your foot off the gas and it will automatically, you know, start applying the brake there, just to make it a little bit easier off-road if you don't want to do, you know, any kind of left foot braking or any kind of fancy, you know, off-road driving yourself. And of course, this four-wheel drive system has not only modes to switch it into 4 high and 4 low, but also an auto mode that allows you to, you know, have the computers figure out whether or not you need the front axle helping you out or not. And so it's nice that you have that too, so it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of it. Or if you're on the fly and you're preoccupied with, you know, navigating some type of, you know, off-road, you know, path or bad weather or something, it's nice to have the auto mode to just figure that out for you, so you don't have to be messing with buttons while you're trying to focus on driving. So it's nice that it has that. Now, I actually did do some snow driving here on some snow-covered roads just a few days ago, and the auto mode is a little slow to react though, because there was one time where clearly it will default to rear-wheel drive whenever it doesn't see anything super demanding. But there was one point where I got on the gas and, you know, I could tell it immediately started spinning the rear tires for a split second, and then it did kick on the front, but not before it, you know, did some tire screeching and then kicked on the front. So it's not as instantaneous as, you know, some advanced all-wheel drive systems, for example. But, you know, again, it's still nice to have that auto feature, so we'll probably still switch it over faster than you could if you went down and pressed the button and switched it over yourself. So, you know, just nice that you do have that for sure. I just wish it was a little quicker to react. You also have 9.8 inches of front wheel travel and 10.6 inches of rear wheel travel, and that's about 2 inches more than what you get on a Trail Boss, so another nice improvement there, having that extra flexibility here. And merging onto the highway now. Yeah, this V8 engine is nice and strong. And one other really nice thing about this still running, you know, a normal V8, and the fact that it still has the leaf springs, is that gives you better towing. This can still tow 8,900 pounds, which is more than the Raptor, and even more than like a TRX, for example. So really solid as far as towing goes, and also has a payload of 1,440 pounds. But anyway, so now we're out here on the highway. The adaptive cruise control system isn't anything fancy, unfortunately. You can't get GM Super Cruise tech here in the ZR2, at least for now. So it's just a regular adaptive cruise system. It does have the lane keeping assist and, you know, all the usual kind of safety tech you can get here in these. But as far as, you know, out here on the highway, you know, normal highway speeds now, what I can say is that it's still fairly quiet. It's not too bad, honestly. I think, you know, again, having mud tires and stuff, I'm impressed that it's not noisier. But what I have noticed is over the little grooves in the road and things like that, I still feel a little bit of the typical truck shudder, which again, I didn't get in the Raptor, and for what it's worth, I also didn't get that in the TRX, which also has the coil springs. So you're still just, you know, it's not as good as a Raptor as far as the ride. And if, you know, I had to pick one to take on a long road trip, hands down, I would take the Raptor. And really the last two things I mentioned here, though, are the fuel economy and the pricing and how it compares to its competition. So as far as fuel economy goes, if you're buying one of these, you shouldn't really care about fuel economy, but I just briefly want to mention that these are rated 14 mpg in the city, 17 on the highway, and 15 combined. And in my driving here, about 75 miles here so far, which I did do one remote start for a few minutes while I was clearing some snow off of the car, but I'm still only getting 12.2 mpg, which is crazy because I mean I was getting like I think 10 in the Ram TRX with its 700 horsepower. This is way less power, and I'm only getting 2 mpg better. So not super impressed with that, but again, if you're buying one of these, you don't care about fuel economy. The last thing to mention though is the pricing. And so that is one thing that you are going to be caring about because, one of the biggest competitors is the Raptor, the Ford F-150 Raptor. And the thing about the Raptor is it's only about $1,250 more. Yes, that's right. It's basically $1,000 more expensive for the Raptor. And, so this one as tested here is $77,400. And before we get into the Raptor discussion, I will say that, one of the bigger competitors, honestly, is probably Chevy's own Silverado Trail Boss, because now for 2022 and 2023, the Trail Boss gets this same nice interior. You can get leather as an option in those. They come standard with cloth still, but even with leather and the same tech and, most of the same features as this, they still come out to about $8,000 cheaper than this. Even with the 6.2 liter engine. So since the engine isn't special in this, it really takes away some of the exclusivity. I mean, yes, you have the front locker there, and you have the upgraded half shafts, you have the unique styling there, especially up front there with the bumper, and of course those all-important Multimatic spool valve dampers. And so if those few things are really important to you, then yes, by all means go spend the $8,000 extra for the ZR2 here. But honestly, I think for most people, if you're not going to be using that extra capability, or at least not very often, I really think you're probably better off just getting a Trail Boss. Because the Trail Boss, I reviewed one of those pre-refresh, and they're also the same basic experience in many ways. You don't have the 33-inch tires. That's another thing here. It's upgraded with this. And I know some of that stuff is pretty expensive. So, if you're going to do those things anyway, you're probably better off just doing this instead of going to the aftermarket. But it's just worth noting that if you are okay with a little bit less capability, you save a whole lot of money with the Trail Boss. But if you are okay spending $77,000, $78,000, you have this and you have the Raptor. And the Raptor, even though 0 to 60 times are pretty similar, you have a lot more power with the Raptor. You have a couple dozen more horsepower, several dozen more pound-feet of torque. And so, from a seat of your pants feel, whenever you are up to speed, I do think the Raptor pulls a little harder in the upper speeds. Once you're beyond 45 miles an hour or something, that's where I think the Raptor really starts to pull like a freight train, where this could run out of steam a little bit. And then again, like I said earlier, the Raptor has a much better ride quality. For me, if it were between this and a Raptor, I would hands down go for the Raptor. I think this is really for people who either want the extra narrowness of this, because this can go places where a Raptor can't because of this being 5 inches narrower than the Raptor, or if you're someone who must have a V8 engine and you can't afford to go up to the Raptor R or the TRX, then I think this gives you the V8. You have basically the same kind of 0 to 60 as a Raptor, regular Raptor. So you have the V8 growl without giving up much performance in a straight line. And or if you're just someone who's a Chevy fan, obviously this is as high as you can go within the Chevy family. The ZR2 came on the scene at just the right time, where it has the better interior, it has all those things to really make it competitive and make the Silverado competitive against the F-150 and the Ram in general. But as far as the Silverado ZR2, it's going to come down to personal preference between this and the Raptor. But it still is really great that Chevy's decided to offer the ZR2 here. And I'll lastly say, I'm sure everyone has said this and Chevy's probably tired of hearing it, but I really don't know why they haven't done a supercharged V8 version of the Silverado here. It would be an easy money printer for them, and it's just surprising they just don't want to compete in this segment, really, and with the Ram TRX, just being so much more exciting. If you have the extra money to spend, that is so much more fun than this is, just from a straight line standpoint. The supercharger one, all that stuff is fantastic, and Chevy has that in the parts bin. With the Camaro ZL1, and now that motor has evolved and gone into the Cadillac CT5 Blackwing and also into the Escalade V. It would be fantastic in a Silverado. Silverado has a great interior, great styling, lots of good stuff to go, that it has going for it. It just needs that insane engine. Put an extra 30 grand price tag on it like they did for the Raptor R, and I think that Chevy, couldn't build enough of them if they decided to do that. I don't know why they haven't, but in the meantime, it's just unfortunate that Ford and Ram both have something way cooler if you are looking for some crazy, crazy off-road truck. But still love the Silverado ZR2 all the same. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the Silverado ZR2 in the comments below. Huge thanks to Chevy for providing me here with this Silverado to review for you guys. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please also leave a like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.